I am really afraid of relying on happy accidents within my modular synthesizer. I know it's a system that's set up, to create those kinds of fun experimental things. And I like to play with that, but I think for me, relying on those things when I'm making music, when I'm setting out to create something, is really daunting. So that got me thinking a little bit about how it's very possible with Eurorack modules to, very much control the range of tones that our synthesizer is capable of playing at any given time, and also how we can control some of the randomness by feeding pre-made tones via samples into a system. So I took my 84 HP 6U and set it up to have what I'm thinking of as a kind of controlled randomness. It's not a unique concept in modular synthesizers, but I wanted to try, having some fun with experimenting within a set of very controlled parameters. So that's what I did. I'll show you the process that I used to set up the system, and then at the end, I'll show you an example of some of the musical ideas that came out of the experiment. Okay, so I started where I think a lot of people would with a setup like this, with my modular grid, so that I could kind of plan what I wanted. Now in here I've got the Sputnik 5-step sequencer, the switch, the wonderful function generator and trigger source, and one of my favorite modules, the Quad VCF VCA. It's giant, but I love it. I also have the Wogglebug, I have the Ornament and Crime, I have my Verbose dual complex oscillator, which is just great for this kind of a setup. I've got the Herb Verb. Now, it's a gigantic reverb, but it has so many modulation inputs, which is why I put it in here, because I wanted to use that. And then I've got the Nano Modules MAR, which I won in a contest on Instagram. And then finally, of course, the radio music for the samples. Okay, so I also needed to figure out a nice tuning, and I picked this A-sharp Raga Chaaya Todi chord tuning because it's a little different, something I have not messed with before. I went with the F-sharp dominant 7th A-sharp chord, which has A-sharp, C-sharp, E, and F-sharp in it. So inside of Ableton, I programmed, 8 notes. It's actually 4 notes repeated in 2 different ranges, and it's the notes from that chord. And so I took those notes and then exported them individually so that I would have samples that I could load into the radio music, and then could use voltage, some kind of modulation or randomness to switch between the notes as I was experimenting with the idea. So next I put everything together in my modular case, just the way I had programmed it and set it up in Modular Grid. I really like reorganizing my synthesizers frequently because, it's a lot of fun, and it gets you out of a headspace you might be used to with a given configuration. In this case, you'll see the Ornament and Crime is being used mainly for quantization, so I was selecting the notes that would actually appear in that quantization setup here. I'm also using the MAR mixer, which I mentioned, because that lets me patch in my 2 voices, the sampler and the oscillator, and also create an effects loop with the Herb Verb. Okay, so here's the result. Okay, well, I really hope you enjoyed this video on the process that I used to create this patch and this idea. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.